Well, we're going to get kicked off here with Big Brother Watch, and they tweeted this out yesterday. Today, being yesterday, we can expose the hashtag Ministry of Truth. Secretive government units and British Army have been spying on public, academics, journalists, human rights campaigners, and MPs in the UK under the guise of combating misinformation. So they produced a website, at least the URL there, minitruth.co.uk, takes you straight to the page on the Big Brother Watch website. Well, let's just have a look at the key findings. First of all, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, Conservative MPs David Davis and Chris Green, high-profile academics from the University of Oxford and the University College London, and journalists including Peter Hitchens and Julia Hartley-Brewer all had comments critical of the government, analysed by anti-misinformation units. Targeted speech included public criticism of government's pandemic response, particularly lockdown modelling and vaccine passports, as well as journalists' criticism of the withdrawal from Afghanistan and MPs' criticism of NATO. And it goes on to say that soldiers from the Army's 77th Brigade, tasked with, quotes, non-lethal psychological warfare, collected tweets from British citizens posting about COVID-19 and passed them on to central government, despite claiming operations were directed strictly overseas. Now they have a little section here focusing on the main groups within the Ministry of Truth, as I describe it: the Counter-Disinformation Unit at the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, the Rapid Response Unit at the Cabinet Office, the Research, Intelligence and Communications Unit at the Home Office, and the Government Information Cell at the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. And I'm just going to say a very well done to the Big Brother Watch for doing this. It's getting some traction this morning. But it was us, the UK column, which has absolutely exposed this over the last 3 or 4 years. If we look at this page on the UK column website, Censored, we published this in 2019, and we were talking about Theresa May establishing the Rapid Response Unit within the Cabinet Office, talking about what it was doing, also known as the Fake News Unit, headed up by a guy called Alex Aitken, and so on. We published a couple of articles, published a series of articles, but I'll choose two to highlight here. The British Ministry Information War waged on their own population, published in 2020, and Beyond Integrity Initiative, the scale of UK Gov counter-disinformation, published in 2019. Strongly recommend everybody reads those. And of course, we've been showing this graphic multiple times on the UK column news over the years, showing the censorship network as we describe it, including the Rapid Response Unit, the National Security Communications Team, 77th Brigade, 13 Signals, Department of Culture, Media and Sport Fake News Unit, the Freedom of Information House, the Freedom of Information Clearinghouse. These are all run in parallel with the various intelligence agencies through the National Security Council and the Cabinet Office. And just very briefly on the FY Clearinghouse, of course, if people are having trouble getting freedom of information requests answered on the basis of maybe them being a journalist or an activist of some kind, it's probably because the government agencies have been told to funnel all those types of freedom of information requests through that FCDO department for them to, or Cabinet Office department rather, for them to vet first and for them to make a decision on how those are responded to. So, David, I'm just going to ask for your thoughts on this because, you know, well done to Big Brother Watch for doing this, but we were there first.
Well, we've been talking about this for some years, and it has been, the others as well have been talking about this for some years, because back in 2020, General Sir Nick Carter said that the 77th Brigade was combating, quote, what they termed misinformation, and what we now know is correct information that was devastating to the government's case, online about COVID-19. What that has to do with the military, at the time we were wondering. And indeed, it was quite clearly not, as the MOD had stated, only dealing with external threats, destabilising the country. It was dealing with internal dissension, and it was clearly doing that. And of course, there were thousands of people involved. I think the numbers are something like 2,000 on the regular staff, but they could call on up to 20-odd thousand for a surge online when necessary. This is information provided by General Sir Nick Carter. And again, this is back in 2020. So the information has been out there, and the basic principle that we are going to protect the government's narrative online using the United Kingdom military to do so, with all the implications of that for freedom, for free speech, for having a country where you can actually feel safe if you wish to dissent from the government's line, were ignored by the mainstream, but have been reported by us and others.
And we should not forget that one of those 77 Brigade reservists, at least, Tobias Elwood, is still a serving MP. Now we've got to try to work out how it's possible, how there's no conflict of interest there. But anyway, nonetheless, I'm not quite sure how you represent a constituency while at the same time you may be spying on them.
Absolutely. I just want to add to that having served in the military, particularly during the Cold War period, what this is a creation of the Soviet. This is the Soviet system. This is how it worked with the government spying on citizens. This is so offensive to me, and I'm sure it is to many other both serving and retired military people. So we've got to stay on the case.